Hello and welcome back to Chatbot on Robot Republic. I am joined again by another very special guest because I am with Halil from Team Machiavelli to discuss their amazing action RPG stroke tower defense game, Castle of Alchemist. Hello, Halil.
Hello, Josh. I'm quite happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Oh, no, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really excited to talk about Castle of Alchemist because it is, as we were talking about in the pre-interview chit chat, it is a really interesting game. It is so for the purposes of our lovely viewership, can you give us a brief overview of Castle of Alchemists?
Castle of Alchemist is a tower defense and action RPG hybrid, as we call it. And we mainly inspired similar games like Orc Must Die, but we wanted to focus more on the action RPG part of it. For we separated the tower defense and action part more clearly
Mm.
as in terms of items, and we choose as a pixel art approach to the game, so it will be easier to develop for us. That was quite a problematic, but it wasn't easier. But it is pleasing, and we included a lot of stuff from other media that we like. Warhammer was a quite inspiration. Doom was quite an inspiration in terms of mechanics and character design. Goblin Slayer, Berserk, in terms of character design, of course, that adventurous 80s action heroes. We wanted to make a single guy going against a hordes of enemies and winning the day, saving the day. Old stuff, old tale coming from all the time. That kind of stuff actually made us create Castle of Alchemist.
Oh, and it is such a cool game. I mean, we have a joke in we joke around in Robot Republic that we have one of our colleagues, Marcus, loves like kind of strategy and tower defensey kind of games and stuff. I suck at tower defense games, and I honestly, it's embarrassing to watch me play them because it always goes horribly wrong. However, Castle of Alchemists, I was playing a chunk of it in prep for the interview, and I actually got on quite well with it because, like you say, it's a hybrid between the tower defense and the action RPG element. And obviously, I make monumental fluff ups whilst I'm doing the planning bit for the tower defense. But then I didn't have to panic because I could just rely on my dude running around and being able to kill things. I was like, yes, I have a fail safe. Such a cool idea. And like you say, there are lots of games that do kind of like there are tower defense games where these are more kind of like these slight action RPG elements, but this is the first time or the first game where we've got a really clear distinction between two really popular types of game, and you've merged them together in a really, really beautiful way. Um, my first question really is, where did the inspiration for Castle of Alchemist come from? Because we've talked a bit about the games that inspired it, but where did
Mhm.
the idea for this come from? Because it is such a fascinating idea.
The idea came from actually we were making educational games, attending some contests nationwide. Castle of Alchemist born as a game that teaches, actually makes people curious about chemistry.
Mm,
We had synergies, that kind of stuff. Then when we were designing that kind of game, we decided that there should be a guy that you control because especially the new generation, for the new type of games, are quite accustomed to play all the time, get the attention all the time. In
yeah.
tower defense games, you get your setup, then you watch it work. But that we said that we have a very limited time. We don't have that kind of scope. So to be able to make it more interesting, we included a playable character, just like in Orc Must Die. And we decided this guy is a chemist, this guy is an alchemist, whatever it is for that time being. And that mixture actually created something very dynamic, especially with the chemistry synergies. And we realized, okay, this is really fun. let's let's put the educational part at somewhere.
Mm,
And because in educational games you cannot call monsters monsters, you
mm,
cannot show the violence degree you wanted to show, that kind of stuff. We told ourselves we want to include this, we want to make games like this. So let's put the educational at aside and make this a commercial game
yeah.
for entertainment purposes. And if it creates curiosity about chemistry, what a wonderful idea. Let's go for that. And from that idea, the Castle of Alchemist born as a we back in the day we called it like a tower defense meets Doom. In small arena, high-paced action RPG stuff that you get loot, randomized item abilities, skill trees, etc. But very high-paced action.
Mm,
but there's a stage that you can lay traps, you can strategic design, so it's a tower defense as well. So we kind of merged these two genres, and Castle of Arkham is born like that.
That's amazing. I love that as well. It's Doom meets tower defense.
Yeah.
That is like that is a tagline and a half. Because as you know, and that's the thing that I found when I was playing it through. Um, it was really cool to have this kind of strategic moment. It's always like that. You get this breathing space. Right, I'm going to plan. I'm going to put my
Mhm.
traps in places, and I'm going to see how they work. But unlike the conventional tower defense, where the monsters start coming in, and you suddenly go, "Oh dear, I've left an opening like down here because I didn't scroll down the map far enough." I put my dude there. I was like, I'll put
Yes.
my traps are up here on the top left. I'm going to put my dude on the bottom right because that way I've got all bases covered, and I'll just occasionally run up to the top left and make sure nothing's getting through. And that the high pace bit, the action RPG bit, the bit we were actually battling the monsters, was so well done.
Oh, thank you.
Honestly, I loved it. This was like I was sitting there like, am I going to enjoy this because of the tower defense elements? But then when I got into it, I was like, oh, this is good. This suits me. This fits my jam.
Wonderful. Then we did our job right. That's
um, how then did because obviously merging of the tower defense and like we say the kind of this top-down action RPG shoot, this kind of like what like you said, the kind of like the merging of tower defense and Doom. How did that idea come about? Because those are two very different types of games, two very different paces and approaches to game design as well. It's kind of, I suppose, how did you come up with that design, and then how did you kind of go about balancing the mechanics? Because the mechanics for those two types of games are very different.
hmm Uh, the idea came as that me and my, me and my both my both my pa- me and my partner both are quite vivid
Mm,
gamers. We really like tower defense modes of old games like Warcraft 3, that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Elemental did that stuff. But we also had the same idea shared that this is way too stable. I mean, you do this stuff, but it's not even chess. If you get your stuff right,
Mm,
they always flow. There is no enough variation that you can go through. So we wanted to include high action part of it. Orc Must Die was a clear example for us that
mm,
it was done right, and it also showed us that this is not a wild bet. It's already have a built-in player base that plays that kind of games. It's even called Hero Tower Defense, I believe. We are
yeah.
just newly introduced into the term. But the balancing part is actually quite like how I learned engineering. It's almost entirely trial and error. We make the game, we put it in it there. Our first priority outside of the balance is that does it feel nice?
Mm,
In an empty vacuum, killing stuff, hitting stuff, moving aside, does it feel fun?
mm,
That's the most important for us. If it feels fun, if it feels right, then we go into iteration of balancing with trial and error. And we hugely rely on our prior game experience as gamers.
yeah.
Most of the time, we go something like this. You know, I feel like this should be like that.
Yeah.
I feel like this should be like this. I feel like this should be level less. And when we make a discussion like that, we feel like we always try to back it up with going back to other game genres that did this stuff good.
Yeah.
And what did they do? I mean, what is working and what we would wish that they should be added to as well. It's not just also tower defense. We look in, as I said before, Doom, especially the new iterations, Doom 2016 and Eternal. We look at Diablo, how they handle items, how they handle that kind of stuff.
Mm,
How is this balanced? And we play a lot of other other tower defense games, Dungeon Defender, Orc Must Die, Dungeon Warfare, that kind of stuff.
mm,
And we always try to look how they balance the economy. For example, how many did you start? How many did you always take a mean? So we have some reference point, but majority of the time, it's game feel. We rely on our gamer experience, and so far so good. We are good at the part of that, making it feel like okay, this is very nice feeling.
yeah.
At the balancing side, right now we are struggling with learning curve. I
Mm,
mean, since we are developing the game, we are playing all the time, but for a newcomer, it starts a little bit easy, then increasingly becomes difficult. So we're gonna introduce a little bit new levels that
yeah.
makes a curve of learning. We actually did it with the last demo, and our feedback was quite positive, so we're in the right way. So you can say the balancing is trial and error and prior game experience mostly.
Oh, that's amazing. And actually, it's really nice kind of that the balancing comes from that gut feeling. It's not, it's obviously you're going to spend time looking at spreadsheets and poring over code and stuff, but ultimately it's that, does this feel right? Does this
Yes.
feel like, is this what we want the game to feel like? And if it doesn't, then what do we need to tweak? And kind of that trial and error process is really awesome. Thank you. That was really
Yeah.
interesting. On the subject of kind of like the action RPG element, it's you've got quite there's a lot of player choice in this game. And the thing that
Yes.
really struck me was that not obviously you've got this huge array of different traps and stuff that you can employ in the tower defense bit while you're setting up for each round. But the thing that stuck out to me as well was the fact that your main character, Bellator, can use both ranged and melee attacks, which is something that I love because I like that flexibility in combat and stuff. You know, you can spend ages doing, but you know, it could have been like you spray a load of guns and then one guy gets around you, quickly run over and knife him. How did you handle that kind of the mixture in the kind of ranged and melee combat that's available to the players? From the range perspective, I mean, not just being able to kind of like run around running and gunning, but also the tower defense stuff. How did you kind of handle that mixture in terms of the gameplay for players?
The game started as ranged only first. We made a discussion about it. Okay, no melee weapons. We have a small scope about this game. But as the game developed, the main character design also changed. We have this huge, burly, muscular guy, but he is not using any melee weapons. That kind of started to stack it out. So we decided, okay, especially at the times that enemies surround you, you need to be able to have a small melee, that kind of stuff. And we made a small test about, without any animations, just effects and a small circle to represent the player, how the enemy's AI react in current situation to the being able to deal with melee attacks. And that felt really right. At that point, we decided, okay, this game needs a melee weapon. We need to introduce that.
Yeah.
At first, it was a melee attack with only button. It wasn't an equipable item that you are just swinging a hammer or that some stuff. Then we started to think that okay, we can actually use this stuff. We realized that ranged is inherently a lot better because you're attacking from a safe distance in terms of that stuff. Okay, that's the idea. What about the melee? Melee is actually mostly used in choke points and how can I say to disable the enemy because almost each melee swing staggers the enemy a little bit and pushes them back. So in terms of huge waves coming towards you, melee attack becomes increasingly more favorable compared to the range weapon, especially if you are lacking other towers and defenses that can protect you at that situation. Then we realize that melee become really overpowered. People start to deploy slowing traps and grouping them all together and killing them all together. Then introduce stamina usage. Melee attacks uses stamina, that kind of stuff. So we are trying to make a delicate balance between melee and range. We do not want one feel superior to the other. We do not also want that you need to be able to play this game melee only if you want to. You need to be able to play this game ranged only if you want to.
Yeah.
So at this point of game, we are trying to diverse our melee weapons. We designed 3 more melee weapons, actually. And right now, the hammer you use will also, all the items that you have will be craftable with different versions. For example, right now, I am designing an electric hammer that will shock the enemies, that kind of stuff. And when you hit it on a metal plate or something like that, electricity will travel across all metal traps, as I talked before.
Yeah.
That kind of little synergies, even though they break the balance a little bit, if they feel right, if they feel satisfying enough for certain times, this will be okay for us because we are introducing lots of different enemies with different type of resistances. You think the electricity is overpowered, then the enemy is coming from electric immune, and you're all stuck with using a different strategy for them. So we're gonna mix up things a little bit, but we want certain stuff to be overpowered at a certain stage of the game so the player can get the satisfaction of killing lots of hordes of enemies with a singular guy.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I like as well that the focus is on around having fun. Like there's, like you said earlier with one of the other questions. You've got this kind of difficulty curve that you've brought in and all the balancing stuff, but ultimately, does this feel right and is this fun?
Yes. Is this
'Cause
fun is the most important question for us.
yeah, because let's be serious now. There are games out there which, if you're a fan of a channel, you probably know exactly how I handle them badly. Like we're currently at the moment, Sekiro is potentially still streaming. I may have rage quit. But those games are challenging and they are hard as nails. And they do become fun eventually, but it takes a while to become fun. Um, don't yell at me in the comments for that one, please. But to have a game where, because we all like this is, I liken it to, we play video games because we like challenge, but we like the world and we also like that power fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And I do enjoy a game where I get to live out that power fantasy. And if something is a little bit overpowered, then who cares? Because it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's like Doom. Doom is fun. You are overpowered in Doom.
Yeah, it is.
And it's just, yeah, that's really cool. My next question is more kind of like focused around because so players take on the role of Bellator, who is an alchemically enhanced super soldier, and a
Yes.
really cool protagonist. Um, and you're defending kind of a settlement of surviving humans from this horde of monsters. Um, and there are quite a few different characters in the game. There are a handful of NPCs that you meet and stuff, and they've all got
Yes.
they're all really interesting characters. How did you kind of develop kind of like initially Bellator himself is a very, very interesting character. I love the concept of Bellator as a character. But how did you develop both him and then the other characters that players meet in the castle?
Bellator designed is an 80s action hero. He is actually a one-dimensional character.
Hmm.
Uh, he is made to kick some ass. That's the very summary of it. And as I said before, we heavily inspired for 80s action heroes.
Hmm.
Go into the action, you'll always try to not think about moral about that. Doom was a very huge part of that stuff. Slay the demons no matter what, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Goblin Slayer, again, one-dimensional, but focused on a single mission as a soldier like-minded stuff. And his external design is heavily inspired from Space Marines from Warhammer as well.
Yeah.
Doom again, and his armor design is inspired by Goblin Slayer. It's a mixture of all things, and we wanted to use gadgets, that kind of stuff, bombs, weapons, grappling hook for traveling from across gaps, that kind of stuff. That you can see that he's like a, how can I say, a witch hunter, a witcher maybe,
Yeah.
maybe an engineer in the stuff that uses gears and other stuff to get advantage. He's not just muscular and he's like a godlike creature. He's a soldier that uses his equipment. That was the idea for Bellator. A guy in a helmet that just
Yeah.
goes through hordes of enemies. He's your mindless slaying machine and defender of humanity, whatever it is. But the other parts, other NPCs are designed in a way, again, heavily inspired by, again, Warhammer fantasy setting, uh, in a way that we do not introduce a moral compass, good and evil. These guys are alchemists. They are shunned by their society because of maybe accused of witchcraft, that kind of stuff, maybe social dogmas. For example, our trapsmith is a female dwarf, and according to the lore, which we did not implement it, but this is the idea, dwarfs in her society, they do not allow females to be blacksmiths, for example. So even though he's a master, he is shunned by her society.
Yeah.
So he travels to the Castle of Alchemist. This is a haven for this kind of people, this kind
Yeah.
of masters in their crafts, scholars, alchemical engineers, that kind of doctors maybe. But they are not actually good guys. They are selling weapons. They are selling cures, medicine, that kind of stuff. So they are defined in a tone that this is not about good and evil. This is how the real world works.
Yeah.
They're actually mercenary, and especially for the army guys that you can see in the war room or you can see operating the ballista tower. These people are inspired by Italian state armies. They are, how can I say, constricts. They are paid.
Yeah.
Not constricts. They are mercenaries, actually, mercenary armies. They are paid. They have a code of honor on their own, but they are not exactly, how can I say, patriot warriors. They have just their patriotism to their own army of bands. They are called Legia Ferrata. We are inspired by the Roman Legion, one of the Legion of Iron. Their symbol is actually a alchemical symbol of iron
Oh
as
wow.
well as Mars. That kind of stuff went into to creating this narrative design. We wanted to feel like that. Look, you are not the good guy, but you are the right guy. They come to invade you. You need to defend yourself.
Yeah.
You don't think about like we are the heroes. Go save the princess. Not that kind of stuff. Yes, you're a killing machine, and go do your killing. That was our motto for creating all this stuff.
That's really cool. And actually, it's quite nice as we see that, like you touched upon there, talking about the blacksmith dwarf who
Mhm.
she's shunned by her own people because, she's a female and stuff. So it's kind of this idea that
Yeah,
you've got this morally, this moral gray area for the castle and all of its inhabitants, but actually, because they're all in this kind of, they've been shunned by society for whatever reason, they've actually developed their own society where they all kind of coexist and stuff. And it's actually like it's this kind of idea of this kind of like almost this like found family kind of quote unquote thing
yes,
where everyone kind of like we don't care who you are, we care more about what you do. What can you bring to our community that's going to
exactly.
benefit us? We don't care if you're a lady dwarf, get on with it. We don't care if you're a band of angry mercenaries or a, one-dimensional killing machine. If you can bring something of worth to the community, then we're all for it, which is really nice. Um,
Yes, actually, this ties especially the creation of the Bellator in terms of lore as well.
mm,
They started to develop some weapons or some equipments that cannot be used by regular people.
yeah,
And when they realized that with that technology, they are at the pinnacle of what they can do, they decided that, okay, we cannot create stuff that normal people can use. What about if we create people that can use that kind of
yeah,
stuff? So let's make an alchemically enhanced creature that's very super strong, very durable, which will give us the upper hand in terms of mercenary army, in terms of battle sieges, that kind of stuff.
yeah.
So first of its kind, Bellator is actually created as a war machine.
That's brilliant. I like it. That's I can see, I can really hear the Warhammer kind of inspiration that was actually
Yes.
created specifically to be a war machine against this horde of monsters, which is really cool. I know we've got a lot of some of the guys that do the writing and some of the other YouTube team for Warhammer Republic are huge Warhammer fans. They're gonna be like, "Oh my god, this is so cool."
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Um, Thinking a bit more about the narrative then. Kind of how did you approach? Because like you've we've just touched upon there, kind of like a lot of the narrative bits are done through kind of like dialogue, kind of like text dialogues and stuff by talking to the NPCs. How did you go about the kind of development and implementation of the narrative? Because even just the short section that we played, there's a lot there. There's a lot of narrative, and there's
Mhm.
I found myself kind of wanting to know a lot more. So how are you going about developing and implementing the narrative?
Uh, as we formed our small startup company, we decided that we're gonna be gameplay first.
Hmm,
Story will always come second for us, but not the narrative design.
yeah,
Narrative design, we implemented this kind of stuff, this kind of brutality into the game with assets first. For example, we have multiple death animations for enemies. They react with different death animations to different type of force. For example, if you kill a guy very close with the blunderbuss, he flies away as well as with hammer as well. So brutal approach, brutal world is introduced like that. The
hmm,
castle, its design, characters design, stuff you see, the stuff you hear, the sound effects, always contribute to some narrative design, that kind of stuff. It's a little bit,
yeah,
how can I, subconscious way, but we wanted to put the story a little bit at the background. If you want to delve into story as a player, you can definitely
hmm,
do that. There is lots of stuff to discover as you also already did. But for the majority of the players, if you're not about the story, if you do not really care about what's going on, you just want to go kill people, you can just go kill people. It's not a story-driven gameplay.
hmm,
It's a narrative-driven gameplay. If you're not interested in NPCs and talking that, okay, let's not that be a obstacle on your way. Uh, Cutscenes that you always pass through. But if you want to communicate with the NPCs, who they are, what kind of world this is, so okay, this is also existing. You can read, you can talk with them. So story was always coming second. and buried in terms of item description will be in item descriptions, will be
Yeah.
in NPC talkings, and especially we are preparing a bestiary right now. Enemy descriptions. That section will have a lore section about the history of the castle, history of the mercenary army, Legio Ferrata about Bellator. But if you're not interested about it, just go kill some guys. We're okay with that. And this is something that we inspired by the recent Doom Eternal and the recent Doom 16.
Yeah.
You can easily play it without stopping, but if you stop by and read a couple of codex, okay, what is this? What is that? The story itself forms. You
Yeah.
understand why he acts, how he acts. But if you don't, just go kill the
Yeah.
icon of sin. Who really cares? I mean, so our approach was like that, and this is like our motto. Gameplay should always come first. Story for the people interested would also be there. We are
Yeah.
not just in a, how can I say, only living in a construct like a game like world.
Yeah.
This is a real world. It's a living world, but if you want to explore it, you can explore it, not the other way around. It's not
Yeah.
forced to be explored.
Yeah. Exploration is part of the player choice. But if you just
Yes,
want to run around, build towers, and kill monsters, then by all means go ham.
definitely.
I really liked as well that you said that actually it's there's a distinct difference between the story and the narrative. The narrative is how you're communicating the world building and
Yes,
everything like that to the player, and the story is this is what we go from A to B. And actually, I found as well that quite a lot of people assume narrative and story are the same thing within game design, but actually,
no,
yeah, narrative is how we communicate our world and our ideas, whereas the story is the act one, act two, act three dialogue, kind of what the player interacts with, whereas the narrative design is how you're communicating as the player. It's really, really interesting, actually. I like the idea that actually it's gameplay first and narrative design is part of the gameplay, and then the story stuff.
story comes second. Yeah,
Yeah, the story is kind of interwoven in there. And if you want to engage with the story, which as someone who loves narrative and lore and all that kind of stuff in games, I absolutely will be. But if you just want to go murder some demons, then go murder some demons, because that's fine. And to be fair, there are days where all you want to do is just log onto a video game and violently murder hordes of monsters because you've had a bad day. There's
yeah,
nothing wrong with
definitely.
that. Moving on a bit. One of the big things that jumped out to me as well is that players have got a wealth of upgrades available to them. You've already touched upon kind of some of the ones that you're working on. You're developing even more, designing and developing even more of
Mhm.
them to bring into the game. How are you kind of going about, and how did you go about the kind of designing and development of all of those upgrades? Because there are quite a few.
Yeah, there is. First, we decided that this game will be a little bit Diablo light. That's our term for it. We cannot match their item customization with our manpower, but we want to introduce stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay, all of them will be craftable and all of them will have randomized abilities. We do not have drops from the enemies because, as I said, narrative design doesn't allow that for us.
Hmm.
When you decide that, you get the ideas, okay, this will do this, this will do that, this will do that, and we go into the traps as well, and we decided, okay, we need a variety here. We cannot have same trap going over all the place. We need to give players something new each level it finishes,
Yeah.
because in the final release of the game, right now in the demo you have just 3 levels going one
Hmm.
each other. But in the final release of the game, you will have around 10 to 12 missions
Oh, wow.
that will go through like a story branch like that. And you will have small branches, small levels that you can get XP, new items, new trap stuff, that kind of stuff. Like not side missions, but side maps that you can take optionally. So to be able to make them feel progress, we need to introduce a new elements of the game, like a new trap, new upgrade of a trap, new item. Even though in the core they do the same thing, if they are visually distinct enough, sounding enough, and a little bit mechanically different enough, that will be a sense of accomplishment for us. So we delved into the pre-existing games, what they did about the traps, what did they do. We delved in a lot of Dungeons and Dragons stuff, D&D stuff, that kind of tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
I really, really love those, especially the trap designs, that kind of stuff. And what we call that impossible engineering. like medieval engineering.
Yeah.
It won't work, but in the video games it does. For example, our guns in designed in the game. Okay, we said that we are not gonna be realistic. We're gonna be like that. We take a lot of inspiration from again Warhammer, dwarf engineering, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. They have like even miniguns in the Vermintide too. That was the idea for our crank gun. Right now, it's not available in the demo, but it will be in the full version.
Exciting.
And we get lots of bits from each game, each media, popular media we follow, and we decided that okay, this is that. Can we do a little bit touch of ours too? So a couple of them are actually introduced as okay. I wish this game had this kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So we added a couple of more of those too as well. Uh, so it all intertwined in this furball of items for us. So we have a lot of in the common, and our only complaint is that we do not have enough manpower to do what we wish to do. So only half of them maybe in the game.
Yeah.
So that's the idea actually.
I
That's
mean,
how we approach in the design of these
yeah.
items.
I mean, it does also beg, if you've got all these things designed and you've not implemented them, that post-launch DLC, a couple of little extra weapon packs and stuff, a
Yeah,
couple of extra quid on Steam.
that's the hopeful idea for us. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. While we're kind of thinking about the design choices you made in the game, the level design in it is really, really interesting. Like, I will get onto the pixel art style in a second, but I wanted to talk about the level design because the level design, I really liked it. It's not your standard tower defense. You've got kind of like different corridors and stuff because
Hmm.
obviously you've got the action RPG elements. You can go running around and stuff once your towers are kind of like once you start around. How did you go about kind of designing that? Because there are multiple spawn points for enemies, and you've got kind of all these different pathways that you can go and focus on and everything else with. How did you design those? Because I can just imagine it must have taken forever.
Yeah, yeah. Level design is actually one of the toughest challenges right now we are facing, but I believe that we managed to get a hang of it.
Hmm.
Uh, First and foremost, our number one rule is that it must encourage mobility and high pace. I mean,
Yeah.
because we realize that as soon as you go into one place and just put your mouse on the left click, game becomes less and less fun.
Yeah.
So we decided that even though some levels might be like that, they should be short. They should be instantly finished. Not instantly, but in 7 to 10 minutes mark, they should be finished. But the main story levels should always encourage mobility
Hmm.
and high pace action. You should not be able to create a single choke point and sit there. So that was the idea, first of all. And secondly, that we wanted to introduce multiple ways of playing, multiple points that you can create traps, but they are not so obvious. So they are left for player to discover. It's not like that, okay, put your stuff here. It's not an indicator like that.
Yeah.
But certain areas have some advantages, and we want players to find that to feel a sense of accomplishment as well. Another point was that when you first enter the level, especially at the minimap, you will realize that it's not actually very complex, but the map design should reflect a certain degree of visual quality. I
Hmm.
mean, it should be distinct. It should be easily, how can I say, distinguished from one another. And
Yeah.
as soon as you enter the area, you need to be able to say, okay, this is a theme of this map. So we created these gaps that we can feel. For example, at the second level in the demo, we have lava pits, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, fire enemies will come, that kind of stuff. But in the last level, it's a frozen canals. Okay, nice ice enemies are coming. It's similar, a small, uh, how can difference maybe, but
Yeah.
it makes a huge impact in terms of visual aesthetics,
Yeah.
but not mechanically. And last but not least, that we wanted to make it that there should be always shortcuts that player can use, but the
Hmm.
enemies cannot use. That was one of the most important part for us. And it was only possible what introducing different levels of height, corridors, or corridors separated by some sort of obstacles. Maybe the bridge collapsed in there into the lower levels. In the library level, it should be like that. Maybe there's a lava going through right in the middle. Maybe some of the lanes are not beating at all
Yeah.
at the second level, for example, like that. These were the design columns for our level designs. Then we started designing them in very small scale, so it can be easily implemented into the game and tested.
Mm.
We have a very colorful maps, just drawings, nothing else, no assets, not anything else. So we can check out if the map is big enough, is it
Yeah.
feeling fun, or is it feel confined? Is it feeling like restricting your movement? If it does, okay, we say this didn't work, let's enlarge it. Or maybe it is way too large to be able to control or focus.
Yeah.
Okay, this part of the map is not necessary. What can we do about it? We can remove it, or we can make it purely aesthetics and not accessible. So maps still feel large, but not as large as you need to control. So these were the designing columns for our game design in terms of level design.
Oh, that's awesome. And like I say, it must have taken forever, all of those little tweaks and stuff as well to get those levels just right. Because I really enjoyed like the short bit that we played because we played a bit of the demo on Steam. Um, I the mobile I that's like you say, if the focus was on making sure that you have high pace with high mobile gameplay, you hit the nail on the head because I was running around quite a lot. Partly because I wanted to make sure that I killed all the monsters, but partly because I wanted to explore as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. So we have kind of batted around the issue a couple of times, but obviously the game has a gorgeous pixel art style. We love on Robot
Thank
Republic.
you.
We love a good pixel art game on Robot Republic. Honestly, we genuinely love them to bits. But it has this gorgeous pixel art style that kind of matches this almost kind of like gothic-esque vibe to the structures of the castle and the general vibe of the game and stuff. How did you manage all of the different art assets for the game? Because obviously I'm led to believe because obviously with the pixel art stuff, I think you design all the stuff in pixel art. How did you manage that? Because I can just imagine hundreds of hours spent creating all these pixel art assets and stuff, and then saving it like just a multitude of complex filing trees and everything.
Yes. Well, it was quite a tough challenge. I'm the only pixel art in our company. My partners handles the backend and music and sound design, and I
Mm,
handle front and the pixel art part of the game. So we split right in the middle. And in terms of that pixel art, that it comes a lot of down to artwork. There's no trick about it. We work 7 days of a week, actually, as a startup company, unfortunately.
yeah,
And I can easily say that our bulk of the work is creating assets. So this is why we actually choose tower defense, one of the genres as
mm,
well. Because if you wanted to make just an action RPG, we need lots of more stuff in
yeah,
terms of assets, environmental assets, that kind of stuff. If you wanted to make even a Diablo game like that. But if you make a tower defense, you can confine the player in a small arena, relatively small arena
yeah,
for 15 to 20 minutes. And you can actually reuse those assets lots of times. So all the maps are designed in a way that they fit in a tile set, of course. And our major rule for asset creation is that reusability. We need to do that because, as I said, our manpower is quite low as a startup company. We wanted to make it look good. We
yeah,
started this a little bit amateurs, but I'm not gonna say amateurs, but a little bit lacked experience in that kind of
mm,
regard. For example, if I started making Castle of Alchemist today, I would make the assets smaller and focus much more on animation because I am mainly an
yeah,
animation first guy. I want always stuff to look animated really,
yeah,
really well. But when you are working this kind of, how can I, file sizes like characters stick in 64 by 64, that kind of stuff, it takes huge amounts of work. So we created lots of, how can I say, dummy guys. For example, for running animations, for dying animations. And when I wanted to make an animation, I just dropped this one of these dummy drawings and make a design over it
mm,
that I can reuse some parts. For example, most of the enemies' helmet is actually same because reusing assets again, as I said.
yeah,
And for dying animation, okay, if they burn, let's make it all black so we can use the burn animation for multiple fallen enemies and it can easily be redesigned as well. Uh, or they are making the same animations when dying, or some of the enemies sharing same animations. For example, the basic enemies you kill, they have different kind of weapons, but when they die, they drop the weapon and all of them using the same death animation.
Yeah.
That kind of little tricks and stuff are actually pulling us quite through. And we are mostly animating in terms of modules. What I mean by that, I'm not driving the head each of the frame. I'm just moving it part and up and down.
Yeah.
It reduces the quality from what I would like, but it's a necessity we need to make for this game. Because as I said, our bulk of work is right now creating assets, especially in terms of visual right now. This is the most time consuming part of our game development right now.
Absolutely. I can imagine just how many individual files you have for every asset in the game.
I
Must be
can
immense.
say that the main character right now has close to 2,000 frames and 1,000 more to draw.
All
That kind
hand
of
drawn,
stuff.
all hand pixel
Yes,
arted and animated as well.
yes,
My
that
lord.
was our choice as well.
Yeah.
Even the fire animations in our game, even though they have shaders on them, they are still hand pixelated. All of them
Yeah.
are created individually.
Oh my god. That must yeah, that I can see why that's taking the most time, to be fair.
Yeah, I did not actually a single white hair when I started this game. I can tell that.
That's completely understandable, to be fair. While we're on the subject, because obviously you said your animation first. The animations, the game has got there are quite a lot of different animations inside the game. And they all look really amazing. I
Thank
genuinely
you so
like
much.
the fluidity you've got out of pixel art animations is really cool. Um, how how important was it for you? Because you said that you were animation first. How important was it that the animations match the visual style of the game? And how have you kind of managed the development of that? Because obviously, like, there are really good animations. I can imagine, like we just said, with the artwork and stuff, there's a lot there. I can imagine with the animations, there's equally as much, if not more, stuff
Mhm.
there. So, kind of, how have you managed that development of them?
Animation was totally a very important part for us, especially even from the beginning.
Mm,
And we decided to make a trade-off that more types of enemies but less animation. They always all have a single type of that,
mm,
or more animations but less type of enemies or similar type of enemies. We
yeah,
chose the second one because animation strongly reinforces our narrative design as well.
yeah,
For example, if you kill a guy with acid, you can see its face
yeah,
is actually melting off. Or if you kill a guy at a close range with hammer or a blunderbuss, it flies away, leaves blood in the ground. Also, the main character animation is always sharp and fast, conveying that he's a very strong guy, very agile guy. It's not just like a burly, hulking, lumbling
yeah,
piece of meat. It's scary fast.
yeah,
That was our idea. Something like a train wreck coming at you at full speed. So high fidelity of animation was our first priority, and it should always reinforce the narrative design of muscular guy beating thousands of enemies. So different type of death animations, different type of hit animations uh, will be also reinforced with sound effects according to that
mm,
as well. To be able to achieve that, as I said before, that we decided, okay, basic enemies all should look same, so we can different just the weapon, because this give me a couple of easy tricks. I can just change a weapon, and I just running animations, as I said, idle animations according to that. It's a different type of it, different resistances, different HP points,
yeah,
but that animations we can all use the same. Run animations done like in 10 minutes or something so much. I'm just adjusting the weapon position, just throwing the weapons for them. So small tricks went in to amplify the number of animations and fidelity of the animations most importantly. And we manage their development through references. That's the most important part actually. Our as I said before, we have dummy animations that just blocks of colors
Yeah.
conveys the idea of how the animation should be, and all the other characters are actually stick on that. So that actually saves us quite a time,
Yeah,
especially
I
the
bet.
main character also have that. We all, some of the poses, for example, are not very realistic, but they are to show its muscles, its
Yeah.
muscular stuff. Some of them are even unrealistic, not possible. But as I said before, this is a hero. This should feel like a hero.
Yeah.
This comes first, realism second.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
far, so good. It's going very well.
I love that. Realism second. Yes, absolutely. Um, realism has, well, it has a place in some types of games, but yeah, I prefer over the top stuff. I'm not gonna lie. Um, next thing I want to talk about was the sound design of the game, the sound and the music in the game. And I know that your partner in crime, Mehmet, is the one who's done all of the sound and audio design. Um, but it really kind of elevates the game's thematic style and the kind of overall narrative design that you put into the game. It communicates the type of world we're in through the sound and the music. Um, when tackling that kind of particular bit, how important was it for you guys to ensure that the audio design matched the visuals of the game?
As we started developing the game, we realized that because of the pixel art nature of the game and our drawing style, this looked a bit cartoony. Especially the first character design was really cartoony, and the amount of violence or gore we want to introduce in
Yeah,
the game, we had the discussion like, is this cartoony or is this Doom-like? And at that point, we decided that okay, if we can supply this with right sound effects and right music,
yeah.
this feel like Doom-like, not a cartoon. So it was quite important for us to get a tune of our own music.
Mm,
And Mehmet did a really fantastic job at there. He mixed folk, ethnic, and metal together
yeah,
and designed a different type of vibe for each types of enemies. Right now we have two sets of enemies. One of them are Nordic for ice, and
mm,
other one we call Oriental for fire.
okay,
And
cool.
he gathered a couple of instruments that kind of sound banks
Mm,
uh, that actually can give the vibe of a little bit Arabic, but mixed with metal. For
yeah,
example, uh, Prince of Persia, especially Warrior Within soundtrack was like that. So okay, this is like stuff we're going that, and Mehmet creates all of them from scratch. He composes it. He actually plays the guitar. He even also, how can I say, he's the vocal as well.
oh
he,
wow.
he sings the songs as well. And okay, what can we do about the Viking team? We found a couple of also musics for that as well to give us the vibe. The metal is especially the rhythm for us that it should always keep your blood boiling. It was always like it's not a very fast rhythm, but it was always hitting like this. When you want to dance your head with it,
Yeah,
you should be able to find a small rhythm. So the game also plays at that rhythm as well. Uh, and a little bit of the 80s action genre as well, a little bit closer to the rock and roll, maybe
yeah,
AC/DC more than metal. That was our also approach to able to amplify our 80s old fantasy type of stuff. And sound design is also very, very important for us because the guy swinging the hammer is not complete without the satisfaction hit sound that it
yeah.
creates, especially when it hits the enemies. And again, Mehmet make a very, very beautiful job at that. All of the sound designs are made in conjunction with the amplify the effect,
Mm,
especially at the points that we want to amplify them. For example, we also want technical details about that as well. For example, our combo system when it starts, it first comes, all the other sounds goes down, so you can focus on the combo stuff. When a new effect comes up, you kill 10 enemies with fire, all the other sound goes down, so you can see the fire effect going off. And when it counts again for a satisfaction, and all of them are designed in a way that this world fantasy is built on mechanical moving gears of parts and
yeah,
bubbling elixirs. All of the sound design coming like that. If it's counting something, it should always feel like a gear
yeah, yeah, yeah,
is counting something. It's not like a cashing sound or something like a cashier sound. It
yeah.
always should have a mechanical feeling. or in terms of alchemical other items, it always should have a bubbling effect, an acid effect, or something like that to amplify. So we went great deal about our sound design and music design, especially the technical as well. We use our a little uh, sound engineers to be able to implement this sound or call them in the within the certain parts of the game. So we also handle the technical part, especially again Mehmet. So sound design and that kind of stuff actually went like this.
That's amazing. And that's really cool as well. And I like how you kind of how for the music design, you didn't just say it's going to be metal and heavy rock, it's going to be metal and heavy rock, but it's going to have because it's a more icy kind of thing, it's going to have this Nordic feel to it, or it's going to have a more kind of Asian or Arabic kind of feel to it for the more fiery based stuff. It's really cool, kind of merging these different genres of music to create it because the soundtrack is banging. Like
Yeah, thank you so much.
I love my video game soundtracks, and when I was playing this through, I was like, yes,
Yeah,
this is awesome.
I really like our soundtrack as well. I kind of listen to it even in the vacuum, sometimes working as well.
I don't blame you. It's really cool. My final two questions are the regular questions. If you're a viewer of the show, you know what they are before I say them. My first of my final two questions is what have been some of the biggest challenges during the development of the game?
Biggest challenge was that asset creation without a doubt. The high number of animations, as I said before. Uh, uh, this also goes for music and sounds without a
Yeah.
doubt as well. It was quite a long time since we decided how I can we do this, how I can what should we do. Even the first question was like that because this is a creative process. It
Mm,
takes a toll on you, and we also need to develop backend and the front end of this game as well. You know,
yeah.
it's just purely artists. We are actually much more than that. And another stuff that at the back end that actually take a toll on us is the path finding system.
Mm,
Because if you are finding the closest way, it's very easy. You can do that. But we wanted enemies to fill up the corridors as well.
yeah.
And they should not, how can I say, act stupidly when the corridor is blocked by barricades. Uh, like 1 hour ago, Mehmet just gave me the green light that he fixed a very important bug about Pathfinder. So we kind of finalized that. It's at least in a place that we can accept. It's intelligent enough. We had a little joke about our AI. It's is it artificial? Yes. Is it intelligent? It's debatable. That kind of stuff. But because of the high number of enemies and they are very close proximity, that kind of stuff, we need to we need to make lots of uh, how can I say little tricks, little give ups about in terms of acting intelligent or something like that. Okay, we realize this looks a bit strange, but there are 600 of them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will just take a toll because even though we are a pixel art game, there were times that our game make high end PCs actually stagger because of the high number of enemies and high calculations. And we
Yeah.
told ourselves, okay, we need to take this down a little bit. Especially pathfinding takes a huge toll on us. These two were the biggest asset creation and pathfinding biggest challenges for our DM developments.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And like you say, some of the things in there, like the pixel art style, lends itself to, like we said when we were talking about the pixel art style and the animations, there must be so much there. And again, with the sound design and stuff, those kind of things, along with not just designing it, but actually making sure that it works and it's playable
It
and
works, yeah.
all of the systems and stuff working, like you say, both the front and the back end stuff, because you are a really small team of two that are creating this phenomenal game.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you so much.
you're welcome. Last major question for the interview. Um, you've alluded to it a little bit, but what are kind of like what are the next big plans for Castle of Alchemist? And are there any at the moment, are there any plans for future projects from Team Machiavelli?
Our first and foremost plan about Castle of Alchemist getting it released in the May, in the first week of May, in early access actually. And we are not planning on a very large early access time period neither. We want it to be finished before the year ends.
Hmm,
So it will be a short early access that we can pump up more content, get in touch with player base, and pump the content according to their needs as well. And Castle of Alchemist will be supported through the winter as well. And for the for future projects, that as a team Machiavelli, we want to carry our signature, this one versus many
Yeah.
kind of approach or team into the next game as well. And we want to keep this dark fantasy, grim dark teams. We want to keep still have this morally gray area ground kind of teams as well. And this might sound strange, but we want to delve into multiple genres as well. We have other kind of stuff, a little bit expanded the team maybe, and multiple IPs. We are not planning to make Castle of Alchemist 2, 3, or something like that,
Yeah.
as a one shot wonder. We want to make multiple IPs, and Super Giant Games are actually our inspiration about that. They made Bastion first, Transistor, then there were Pyres, I believe, then they made Hades.
Yeah.
They could easily call this Bastion 1, 2, 3 or something like that, but they did not. They get better at their craft. They created multiple IPs. That was an inspiration for us, and their games were recognizable. This is what I want for Team
Yeah.
Machiavelli. That a certain type of genre games, okay, this is a Team Machiavelli game. Or same can be said for Super Meat Boy or Binding of Isaac. You
Yeah.
understand these are the same stuff.
Yeah.
They are coming from the same people. So that will be our future plans for Team Machiavelli and Castle of Alchemists.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Halil, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for coming on. Just to, kind of provide a bit of support to you guys, where can our lovely viewer base find out more about Team Machiavelli, Castle of Alchemist, and yourselves?
Right now we have our demo still available on the Steam. They can go out check it out. They can come to our Discord channel. There will be a link in our Steam page as well. We are working a very simple web page for right now.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. You get the idea. But right now it's not active. So our Steam page and Discord channels are also, these are the main channels you can reach us. We are on social platforms like Twitter, Reddit, that kind of stuff. But
Yep.
in terms of marketing plan, we are making this kind of effort personally. Our personal Twitter account. It's not a Castle of Alchemist Twitter account. There's also one that you can follow that retweets and follows us stuff. So you can reach and you can find out more about us in these channels.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And those links are going to be right down there in the descriptions right now. So you can go and download the demo of this brilliant game and have fun, because it is fun. It is bloody fun. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Josh, for making this interview. We were really happy to be here, even though Mehmet wasn't here. He wanted me to say that as well.
Honestly, you're
we
welcome.
appreciate your interview, and we really, how can I say, delighted that you really liked our game, because that's quite important to us.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And thank you so much for coming on the show. Honestly, it has been such a pleasure chatting. And to everyone that is watching, please do, like I said, go and check out the game down in the comments. Please do hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe to Robot Republic, because we have loads of new content coming out on a regular basis, including more interviews with amazing developers like the lovely Halil. Halil, it has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you
Feeling is
next time.
mutual.
Thank you. And we'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.